So internal audit, we look at internal audit. All along, we've been looking at external auditors. When we talk about qualifications, appointment, remuneration, disqualification, they were all related to external audit or external auditors for that matter. So what about internal audit? Internal, nimeandika jina gani hii sasa? Yes. Hii sio mimi nimeandika. Yes, this is not me. Yes, I denounce. Yes, that's how you train yourself to be a politician, saying I never said that. They are putting words in my mouth. I cannot be intimidated. Yes. I had to create a video. I'm misquoted. Yes, I have been misquoted. Sorry for that. Internal audit. It is internal audit. Now, most notable differences between internal auditor and external auditor is internal auditor is an employee of the client, whereas external auditor is a watchdog on behalf of shareholders' resources. Internal auditor's scope of work is influenced by the management, whereas external auditor is guided by relevant professional pronouncements. Then internal auditors report to management, while external auditors report to shareholders. Internal auditor is salaried. External auditor is paid audit fee. Those are notable differences. But by definition, we say that this is an independent appraisal function put in place by management, for purposes of appraising internal control systems, for purposes of appraising internal control systems established by management of an entity for purposes of appraising internal control systems. Maybe you can proceed to say as a service. As a service to the organization, as a service to the organization. Kazi yao ni internal control systems, and they should be independent. Yes. Theirs is appraising ICS, and we are saying they should be independent. Which is not very easy. It's not very easy. Internal audit achieving independence is next to impossible. We've just indicated they are appointed by management. It's management who influences on the scope of nature of their work. And number 3, they are reporting to the very same management. So utakuta zingine wanakwambia leave that alone. Wachana na hiyo kwanza. Yes, look at this. So them achieving independence may be next to impossible. Although their body, IIA, this is Institute of Internal Auditors, recommends that internal auditors be qualified and independent just like the external auditors. I wanted to say just like their external counterparts. Nikaangalia jina counterparts vile zinaweza kuwa inaandikwa, nikaona itanisumbua. Yes. So nikafuta, kaeka just like the external auditor. So if you wish, you can qualified and independent, just like their external counterparts. Just like their external counterparts. Yeah, because they need to be dependent. They need to be dependent, but we've indicated it's not easy. It's not easy. So another thing that we need to get right is what's their role? Of course, it's ICS matters. So their functions revolves around ICS. They may design ICS, they train, I'll dictate something. Just leave it that way, I'll dictate something. They design ICSs, they train on ICS matters, they check on how ICSs are responding to errors, frauds, irregularities, how ICSs are safeguarding the assets. Plus, they perform so many other delegated tasks. Na hapa ndio pia internal audit function inakuwa na what we call expectations gap. Sababu unaona kazi yao ni ICS, but again they perform any delegated task. Kama kesi kuna internal auditors, watakuja wakae pale kwa reception kimpango, waone vile admissions inafanya, waone vile receipt of fees inafanya. Yes, tena wataenda waangalie timetable vile imetengenezwa. Are we able to do the minimum hours per week? They will even check about the syllabus coverage. Hata atakuja tu ingie class asikie how the content is being delivered. Hiyo ndio kazi internal auditor atafanya akikuja hapa. Tena akienda kwa supermarket atafanya kazi tofauti. Ataangalia pricing of commodities, ataangalia point of sale service, customer service, yes, packaging of the customer's products, ataangalia hayo mambo. Akienda kwa hoteli atafanya kazi nyingine tofauti. Ushike hiyo point vizuri sana, because those are questions that we are asked. We are given a case study, then we are asked to indicate 5 functions that are expected of the internal audit department in that organization. Kwa hoteli wataangalia pricing of food, pricing of accommodation. Yes, hata watafanya head count sometimes to get right about the visitors recorded, how they are recorded. Yes, pia wataangalia the procurement process of procuring raw materials, food items. Yes, so they perform any delegated task. Kuna type of audit tulisema, we refer to them as partial audits. Partial audits. Kuna mahali tulizita partial audits because they do not meet the definition of audit. Akina procedural audit, management audit, value for money audit, balance sheet audit, and management audit. Can you recall those 5 types of audits? We classify them together. Yes, and one cluster. Internal auditors may be required to perform those audits. They perform risk assessment. They even carry out some ad hoc assignments. Ati tunaweza waambia carry out some forensic audit. We suspect that there is fraudulent activities taking place in the payroll department. Kindly carry out this forensic audit to achieve the objectives. Who are the perpetrators? How much have been lost? And since when have this been taking place? They can be engaged to do this. They are engaged even to carry out stock take. Wanafanyanga kazi yote, delegated function. But as per the definition, theirs is about appraising internal control systems of the client. Then, all right, Tabi. So, they're very useful when it comes to external audit. They're very useful when it comes to external audit, that if they are reliable, if they can be relied upon. Remember when we were preparing ISA number 210, ISA number 210 was on engagement letter. We said that amongst the contents, the auditor will indicate that he may place reliance on the work of internal auditor. There's a statement we placed there. We captured 11 contents of this letter. One of them was that the auditor will place reliance on the client's internal control systems, client's internal audit, and the work of an expert. That was one point on its own. So it reaches a point where upon doing some assessment, you okay the element of relying on the auditor's work. But what do you check before you place reliance on their work? You check on their independence. Independence. Are these auditors really independent? Before, as an external auditor, you rely on their work. Check their independence. Check their competence. Check their competence. Are they competent enough? Check their experience. Are they experienced? Check the quality. Check the quality of their working papers. Quality of their working papers. How are they planning their audit? How are they executing this? Check their resources. Are they well resourced? Yes, you're checking their resources, or they are starved, or they are starved of resources. If they're well resourced, financially, time and such, then you can rely on their work. You even need to check the strength or otherwise of internal control systems, because if their work is to appraise ICSs, yes, if you assess and find that the internal control systems are very strong, then these are serious department, serious functioning department. Yes, so we are checking about the strength or otherwise of the internal control system. So when you assess this and you find that it is okay, they are independent, they are competent, they are experienced, they are performing quality work, they are well resourced, the internal control systems are very strong. Even you check about the past experience, and you are okay with it, that you've ever relied on their work in the past, and it was okay, no issues that arose, so you can rely on their work. Which work can you entrust them to perform? Yes, I'll give you these points. Today I want to summarize for you through dictation very fast. So which work can we rely? Can we place reliance on the work of internal auditors? They can assess the strength or otherwise of ICS. Number two, they can assist us with background clients information. Why? Remember, these are guys who are dominantly present in the client's premises. They report to work every day. So if you want to understand who is this client, what do they deal with? What challenges do they face? What are matters relating ICS and accounts? Internal auditors can always assist us in this. They can assist us to perform some stock take. They'll give us information about very technical aspects. For instance, IAS number 2 requires that we create provisions for slow moving stock items. We can never tell which are slow moving stock items. Yes, that maybe opening stock was 10, closing stock is 8. We can never tell whether they purchased so many others and sold until they have 8 as closing stock. The internal auditor can tell us they had 8 opening, they've only sold 2, that's why you have closing stock 8. We, being outsiders, we may not be able to get this information outright, but with the assistance of internal auditor who is dominantly present in the client's premises, they can always shed light on this. They can give us information about any changes that have happened. They can tell us within this year, the client has employed 7 accountants. They work for 1 month, they leave, 3 months, they leave, as such. We may not know, yes, but with the assistance of internal auditors, they can always shed light on this. So basically, we are saying they are very helpful when it comes to external audit. And by so doing, even assisting us to assess materiality levels, even matters of risks, assessing risks. This makes external audit effective and efficient. We even spend less time, because much of the information is readily available by the internal auditors. So we spend less time, it becomes less costly, hence efficiency and effectiveness when it comes to external auditors. But we are saying, don't just rely on their work. Appraise them to identify whether they are reliable or not. If they are reliable, they can assist you in doing so many things. And lots of benefits will accrue out of that. We have some problems associated with internal auditors. We have some limitations. I've just mentioned that them achieving independence is next to impossible. And we'll be highlighting that what needs to be done to ensure that they are independent. We need to leave them to come up with the scope of their work. Don't influence it as the management. Let them decide on their scope of work. They are experts. They are trained. So let them decide on the scope of work. Yes, let them be independent, just like their external counterparts. Make them to be able to report to other bodies rather than management. Remember, if we can make them to report to NEDs, NEDs in corporate governance are referred to as non-executive directors. Non-executive directors. So if we make the internal auditors to report to non-executive directors, then non-executive directors to report to executive directors, then them achieving independence may be very easy. Because reporting direct to the management, executive directors, then they may fear that they may be victimized. Achieving independence may be very technical. Or even reporting through a committee, will be referring to it later, audit committee. Although audit committee's membership is NEDs. Part of NEDs form audit committee to play oversight role. So if we make our internal auditing function to report to audit committee, then audit committee to report to the management or the directors, then this may try in a way to enhance their independence, because we've agreed that achieving independence on the part of internal auditors is next to impossible. You should not be worried. I'm dictating that right away. Right away, I'm dictating that part of independence. So you said them achieving independence, next to impossible. Number two, they have an issue of variation of standards, because I've quoted so many ISAs. Which ISA have you gotten offered? We said you need not strain to get them right, but other times you find them coming automatically. Which ISA can you recall we have ever mentioned? ISA 100 is on assurance engagement. You see? Yes. Thanks for trying. Which other ISA can you recall what it is? It's a 610 internal auditors. Yes. It's a 610 internal auditors. Yes. I like that. I like that you're able to. Do you know sometimes answers to some questions in exam are in the exam? Yes. If you read through question 1 to number 5, you may realize that answers to question 2 are in question number 5 indirectly. Yes. So you should lead with your spiritual eyes open. Yes. You're likely to get some hints through reading all the questions. Yes. So in internal audit, we don't have any standards. So there is variation of standards. There is no standardized way of doing it. You'll find the internal auditors carrying out this exercise differently in different organizations. Unlike external auditors, where we have ISA 320 on materiality, we talk of ISA 210 on engagement rate, ISA 300 on audit planning, ISA 700 on report, ISA 500 on how we gather evidence, ISA 530 on sampling. Internal audits do not have any standards. Then number 3, we talk of expectations gap. Expectations gap. This one we know. We discussed 3 auditing concepts. We discussed true and fair, professional skepticism, and expectations gap. And we said what they are. You remember what was expectations gap? Yes. The detecting fraud and errors. That was an example of an expectation gap between what general public think and what the auditors do. I get your point right. Thanks for that. We said expectations gap relates to misconceptions about what the auditors do and what the general public think that auditors do. Number 1 was general public think that auditors look for errors, frauds, and irregularities, but we know this is just an incidental objective. People out there think that auditors report to the management. As we know, they report to the shareholders. Such misconceptions. Here, there's a misconception of what internal auditors do. People think that internal auditors are witch hunters. Yes, that's what other employees view them as. Actually, there is, in most organizations, there is bad blood between employees and internal auditors, because they think the internal auditors are there looking for where there are issues and so on and so forth. I told you that there, sometimes back before taskers went down, the internal auditor was murdered somewhere in Mombasa Road, was shot dead. when he was just leaving the premises, Tusk's premises. Such bad blood until somebody wants to put someone in permanent thrip. Yes, because of such issues, because they're able to highlight weaknesses, highlight frauds, and so on. We should get it right. Theirs is not about errors, frauds, irregularities. Theirs is ICS. Their work is internal control systems. Though we've indicated they perform any other delegated function. They perform any other delegated functions. Number 4, they lack supervision. There's no proper supervision of internal auditors. Just now we are talking of IIA. It's viewed as a very new area in auditing. Unlike external auditors, we have ISPAC, which supervises how we carry out activities. They guide us. But internal auditors do not have proper supervision, not unless an internal auditor is a member of a recognized professional body. That's when they are supervised. But if all of us, we said we can be employed as internal auditors, it means nobody is supervising because you have not subscribed membership to any professional body. You have not subscribed membership to any professional body. All right. What about outsourcing? What is outsourcing? We asked ourselves this question the other day. Which services in most cases are outsourced? An example of outsourced services? Rigo. Yes, Rigo. Training. Yes, training. You don't have an in-house trainer. You outsource when need be. You outsource Rigo experts when need be. HR, recruitment, HR. There's people who outsource even accounts. They don't have an accountant. Bank reconciliation. The bank recon, others even outsource payroll issues. Yes. VAT, yes, VAT. They don't have guys to file returns. They outsource when they need them. Yes. What are the advantages of outsourcing? Why would organizations choose not to have an in-house person and go for an outsourcing? What advantages are likely to accrue? They are relatively cheaper. I like the way you talk of relatively cheaper, but in the long run, they're very expensive. Yes, they bring fresh experience, right? And the organization does not incur the training costs to train them. So yes, other advantages. It helps the institution to concentrate. Exactly, exactly. Are you reading my notes? Yes, because that's the point I have. Is my point number 1 that it enables the organization to concentrate on its core activities. Yes, so you outsource IT. You don't need to have a full IT department in the organization. Excellent. Another advantage that may accrue. Time saving? Time?
Because the organization will not have to go through the whole process of recruiting.
That's a very valid point. Yes, we don't care so much about staff turnover in that organization. So we are saving recruiting time. Basically, administrative costs are minimum. Yes, when it comes to recruitment and maintaining such departments, it's very true that they are minimal. Disadvantages? Secrets, confidential information. Yes, will be exposed. Yes, are assured of quality services. Fee tended to be high. That's very true. They're eventually very high. Like we can say, the way we rent houses in Nairobi, can we consider that outsourcing? Instead of us building ours, we outsource when we need them here. But the much rent we have paid so far, we could be having mansions, and yes, it's very expensive. In the long run, very expensive. Yes, confidentiality issues. Yes. Yes. Yes.
In 10 years, that is.
I had a boss who was doing rent 250,000 per month. Yes. He owns a very big hotel somewhere. Eh?
You save the rest. You save the rest, and then you buy a piece of land in Kajiado.
Yes.
Construct your own house.
Yes.
From there, you rent that one and buy another piece of land in a posh estate. That one would be a better idea.
A better idea. Accountants at work. Yes, accountants at work. Yes.
That is not an accountant, an economist.
An economist. Yes, you know, the beauty of accounting, we are all round. Yes, the tax matters, accounts matters, economics matters, finance matters. Yes, so you can imagine a husband and a wife being accountants in one house. Problem, yes. Sugar we bought in sachets. Yes, but it's fine, but it's good to, excellent. You are given another disadvantages here. Management lose control of function. That's very true. Yes, management may lose control of the function. When are we likely to achieve independence? When you have an in-house or when you outsource? When you outsource, yes. When you outsource, that's an advantage. They are likely to be independent because even when they come in as employees, this will have that moral effect that now these are auditors, they are independent. But when we have an in-house, then because of that familiarity aspect, we are likely not to achieve independence. So outsourcing, this brings about expertise, independence, and so on. What is co-sourcing? This outsourcing, what about co-sourcing? Yes, that's true. That's true. Taking part inside and outside. So like we're doing this, we have our in-house internal audit department. We have our internal audit department. But when we require them to carry out some tasks, we outsource an internal auditor to be in charge of the internal audit department during that time when we are carrying out that exercise. Maybe stock take, maybe an ad hoc assignment where we are carrying out forensic audit. We outsource an internal auditor, then we have our internal audit, they work together. We're trying to breed this to get to benefit from both advantages of outsourcing and advantages of having an in-house. So we have more advantages accruing as a result. We have more advantages accruing as a result. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Thanks for the input. There's something I wanted us to write before all this summary. That I said you should not be worried. I want us to do definition breakdown, subtopic. Definition breakdown, looking into two things: the independence aspect of the internal auditor and appraising ICS. That's what we want to break down. Definition breakdown as your subtopic right after the definition or somewhere there where you're writing the notes. Definition breakdown, definition breakdown. Definition breakdown, right? And say an internal audit is therefore, an internal audit is therefore, an internal audit is therefore. There's a student who has said I use English, so my own English may end up today that they're not understanding Swahili, so that I have shifted to English 100%. All right, definition breakdown. We were saying an internal audit is therefore start with A, an independent appraisal function, an independent appraisal function, an independent appraisal function, an independent appraisal function, an independent appraisal function. That's how we started. Independent appraisal function. Independent appraisal function. Independent appraisal function. Excellent. We want to mention something about that independence, the challenges we encounter, and those 4 points have indicated what can be done to enhance their independence, right? And say, internal auditors are employees. Internal auditors are employees. Internal auditors are employees of the firm. Internal auditors are employees of the firm. Internal auditors are employees of the firm, and therefore, independence is not easy to achieve, and therefore, independence is not easy to achieve, and therefore, independence is not easy to achieve. Independence is not easy to achieve, but this can be facilitated. But this can be facilitated by. But this can be facilitated by. But this can be facilitated by Roman number 1. Having unrestricted access. Having unrestricted having unrestricted access to records, having unrestricted access to records, assets, and staff, having unrestricted access to records, assets, and staff, having unrestricted access to records, assets, and staff. Roman number 2, freedom to report to the highest authority. Freedom to report to the highest authority. Freedom to report to the highest authority. Freedom to report to the highest authority, stroke body, stroke body, stroke body. E.g., NEDs, e.g. NEDs. Tukasema kwamba these are the non-executive directors. NEDs, these are non-executive directors. NEDs, these are non-executive directors, comma, audit committee, audit committee, audit committee, etc, etc, audit committee. We'll discuss audit committee maybe next weekend, but one. Next weekend, but one. All right. Roman number 3, they should have a scope. They should have a scope to arrange their own priorities. They should have a scope to arrange their own priorities and activities. They should have a scope to arrange their own priorities and activities. Scope to arrange their own priorities and activities. Their own priorities and activities. Roman number 4, the department should not have conflict of interest. 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 Should not have conflict of interest. The other day we discussed the fundamental ethical principles, yes, where we even discussed the conflict of interest and the safeguards that can be put in place, which includes creation of Chinese walls. What did you say was creating Chinese walls?
But you try the control the departments.
Yes, that's what you said. That's very correct. But if we've been given some assignments, we subdivide amongst ourselves. These learn and friends to do the non-assurance services. These others, we come back to do the assurance services to ensure that there is independence, or basically independence is achieved. That's A, independent appraisal function. B, to review the ICS, to review the ICS, this is where we are. To review is just like appraising or evaluating. To review the ICS as a service. ICS is the internal control system. ICS, internal control system. To review the ICS as a service to the organization. To review the ICS as a service to the organization. To review the ICS as a service to the organization. So that's why we capture the matters ICS, designing ICS, reporting on weaknesses in ICS, checking how ICSs are responding to errors for the matter, training employees on ICS. Those are functions that they are required to perform as per ISA 610. So explain there and say, the internal audit activities, I take it again. So we are expounding on that point. So you already have BS, to review the ICS as a service to the organization. Now we are expounding on that point. Right, and say, the internal audit activities, the internal audit activities, the internal audit activities are directed towards ensuring, are directed towards ensuring, are directed towards ensuring that requirements of the management, directed towards ensuring that requirements of management are met, directed towards ensuring that requirements of management are met, requirements of management are met. Basically, that's what we'll be discussing next week. It's a number 315, risk assessment and ICS. We had to discuss risk assessment. I need to be, there's somebody who is asking which topic we are talking about, which one. Vivian lost count of this. Yes, we've discussed a lot, but next week on Wednesday, somebody should make sure I discuss risks. Let me write somewhere. Assist me with the pen. Need to write somewhere. Actually, in our register. This is the true reminder. This is a true reminder. Tuesday. Oh, I'm saying Wednesday. I mentioned Wednesday. This is that, of course, today is on 1st of July. So next class should be risks and ICS. Very important. Very important that it needs to be discussed now before we move. So basically we're signing on first. Yes, because we need to get right these matters ICS in depth and risks issues in depth. It will be possible to discuss them on Tuesday and on Saturday. We will be done. All right. That requirements of management are met. i.e. Roman number 1. i.e. I picked the wrong one.
It's not the first one.
I'm not sure.
It's the second page we are supposed to be signing.
All right. What?
It's because this one seems to be another class.
I get you right. Yes. Thank you. Thanks for that correction. So it should be the next page. Here. So forward it for us. Yes. Yes. There. Thanks. Thanks for that. Thanks for that. All right. Roman number 1, to assess and ensure. To assess and ensure. To assess and ensure policies are fulfilled. To assess and ensure policies. Early morning. That's early morning. You're an early morning student. Just saying, today we do evening, all of us. Yes, so it's here. It's here. It's here. It's here. It's here. It's here. Today we do evening, all of us. And early morning on Tuesday. Early morning on Tuesday. So we are saying to assess and ensure policies are fulfilled. To assess and ensure policies are fulfilled. B, to ensure organizational assets are safeguarded. To ensure organizational assets are safeguarded. To ensure organizational assets are safeguarded, like the chairs, the tables, the computers. We need controls to ensure they are safeguarded. That's what I'm saying. Next class, we need to do ICS matters to get them right. Next, number 4, or number next, to ensure ICS is well designed. 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 Next, acting as a training officer. Acting as a training officer. Acting as a training officer in the ICS matters. Acting as a training officer in the ICS matters. Acting as a training officer in the ICS matters. You see, theirs revolves around ICSs. Revolves around ICSs. Next, auditing information given. Auditing information given to managers. Auditing information given to managers. Auditing information given to managers. Particularly interim accounts. Particularly interim accounts. Particularly interim accounts and management reports. And management reports. And management reports. And management reports. We can have so many points, but we can have the last one. Roman number last. Taking a share of external auditors' responsibilities. Taking a share of external auditors' responsibilities. Taking a share of external auditors' responsibilities. Taking a share of external auditor responsibilities. We already saw the areas that internal auditors can be of assistance. to external auditors. So that's as per the definition. Then you can skip a line so that we can capture what? That we can capture other functions that they can perform. These ones here. Skip a line and say, other functions of internal auditors. 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 And it's important to have this opening statement. The roles of internal auditors, the roles of internal auditors, the roles of internal auditors may vary from one entity to another. 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 That's a key point to note. And their functions are normally determined by management. Their functions are normally determined by management. Their functions are normally determined by management. Their functions are normally determined by the management. Full stop. They include, so get it right. You meet a question, asking questions in a hotel, in a bar, in a government department, you should be able to come up with what is expected of them. Number one, functional audits. Functional audits. Functional audits. Those who have already taken principles of management in ATD2. You've run a guy known as Max Weber, who is the father of bureaucracy. And one of his contributions is hierarchical structures. Hierarchical structures. In these hierarchical structures, we could be having human resource department, finance department, production department. These are functional levels. So when the auditor is auditing HR, auditing finance, auditing production, those are functional audits. So you can give an example so that you do not forget. E.g., human resource department, HR department, production, finance. So when they're auditing those areas, we refer to them as functional areas because they are so basic that they are needed for functionality of an entity. That's why they are referred to as functional areas. Functional areas. Next semester, advanced leadership and management. By any chance, you'll be taking day classes. You'll meet me and we'll discuss this at length. All right. Dilemma number 2, review of ICS. Review of ICS. Review of ICS. That's the role. Number 3, risk assessment. Risk assessment. Number 3, yes, number 3, risk assessment. Risk assessment. Number 4, carrying out compliance audit. Carrying out compliance audit. Carrying out compliance audit. Carrying out compliance audit. We saw this when we were discussing types of audits. Carrying out compliance audit. Like now, we need serious auditors to look for this because non-compliance to this finance act now, provisions, may lead some people to problems. We'll be having some officers going around to check this, to check compliance. Yes, when the courts give green light and it's to be implemented, people may find themselves in trouble. People may find themselves in trouble. How will it be? And Baba is saying we decline to pay taxes. That's
what happens really on Friday?
suspended and it's being implemented. IPRA. There's some guys who are above the law. It's so theoretical that all of us are under the law. But even from the previous regimes, the heads of states and their guys never adhere to the court orders. It's only in black and white. So see what April is doing for real. We are paying 182 shillings per it. Yes. What will happen?
Yeah,
They are foreign orders from somewhere.
Yeah.
You think?
I think the resistance will just be here for some time.
What will be there for some time?
This resistance, and then I think
Yeah,
we just
yeah,
get used
yeah,
to it.
yeah.
Maybe until 2027, then they will lessen the grip
Mm.
because they want to come back.
Going to come back. How will people resist this? How are people likely to resist?
Refusal to go in.
Yes, there's no way.
By working
Yes.
hard. By working hard.
When you reach it, yeah, it may be tricky to
I think we just get used to it.
yes, unless the employer fails to deduct, and that's problem on their part. It will have repercussions. Non-compliance will have very severe repercussions. Yes. So I believe,
Because,
Hmm?
you know, even then, these are really because.
yeah, we don't have any other option. Just to pay and proceed.
Now it is done. Education. The judiciary itself is also.
It's not independent. Eh?
It is some sort of form of like.
Can you say 100% is not independent? Like the way they're suspending this finance bill, it's like they have a element of
Yeah, it may not be 100% that
their issues. There's some, yes.
So it's not that it's in for
Mm.
some of these like that. Even the one that spends about, you don't expect much.
True.
Yeah. What other than say that.
So the other option is to comply, and we move on.
So we
It's becoming, yeah, I know, yeah, it's becoming so heavy on us. But let's see what will happen. Let's see what will happen.
Bad.
Yes, hope
Yeah.
Hope is good. Hope is good.
There won't be, and they're so.
Already, several of them.
In fact, several of these have already been brought
Yes,
and just prosecuted and promoted.
yes, several of them have happened. The other day we had sugar issues.
Now, this money that we're giving, is it like it's going abroad to try and lessen our debt burden or what in a idea?
You know, the reasoning is we reduce borrowing. We rely so much on generating internally.
Of which we see funds.
Of which?
We see for week.
Yeah, now that's the problem, because even the much which was borrowed, more than 70%, most likely, ended up in individuals' pockets. Yes.
In spite of the great things that are happening, our members of parliament are asking for payments.
All right. These we have no other motherland. Let's proceed. So other functions of internal auditors, we've set over functional audits, review of ICS, risk assessment, carrying out compliance audit, performing value for money 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 audit. Can you recall VFM audit? That's why I mentioned about 3 E's. Who can recall what was about the 3 E's? 3 E's. There's somewhere I mentioned 3 E's, eh? And I told you that this was tested as testing but one. 3 E's one. Effectiveness, efficiency, economy. Yes. Economy, efficiency, effectiveness. It was tested as sitting but one, question number 3 thereabout. Yes, economy, efficiency, effectiveness. But you need not to worry. We'll discuss it as a topic. We'll discuss it as a topic along the way. So they perform that audit. Next, special stroke ad hoc assignments. 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 Special stroke ad hoc, yes, Moline, effectiveness and economic. Special stroke ad hoc assignments. We can give an example, e.g., they may be required to carry out, an investigation. They may be required to carry out an investigation. They may be required to carry out an investigation on suspected fraud. Carry out an investigation on suspected fraud. Investigation on suspected fraud and report to management. Suspected fraud and report to management. And report to management. etc, etc. Report to management, etc. They can perform so many tasks. So many tasks. Subtopic. Areas of assistance. 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 Stroke. Functions that may be delegated. Functions that may be delegated. Functions that may be delegated to internal auditors. Functions that may be delegated to internal auditors by external auditors. Functions that may be delegated to internal auditors by external auditors. Functions that may be delegated to internal auditors by external auditors. To internal auditors by external auditors. See, hizo hizi hapa, hizo saba. Yes. So nikusaidie kuziweka vile tumezipanga pale. Number 1, ICS review. ICS review. ICS review. Next, obtaining client knowledge. Obtaining client knowledge. Obtaining client knowledge. Obtaining client knowledge. Next, routine duties. Routine duties. Routine duties. Routine duties. E.g. stock taking. E.g. stock taking. Stock taking. Comma. Cash counting. Cash counting. Cash counting. Cash counting. Comma. Head counting. Head counting. Head counting. etc, etc. Head counting. etc, etc. Next, technical matters. Technical matters. Stroke issues. Technical matters. Stroke issues. Technical matters. Stroke issues. E.g. slow moving stock items. 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 Next, fundamental changes. Fundamental changes. Fundamental changes. E.g. management changes. Management changes. etc, etc. Management changes. etc, etc. Next, talk of assessment of risks. Assessment of risks. Assessment of risks. Next, evidence of work done. Evidence of work done. Evidence of work done, i.e. working papers. I.e. working papers. Working papers. I.e. working papers. So my planner should note that on Tuesday we are doing risks. that on Saturday we are doing working papers. Yes, those are things which are very important. Yes, note them somewhere. You can always remind each other. We can easily forget. All right. So working papers, we said these are records maintained by the auditors. I gave you an example of working papers, what the doctor maintains when you go to hospital. You tell them your name, where you reside, age, the issues, where you're eating from, the symptoms. Yes, some tests they carry. All those are doctors' working papers. So auditors also maintain their working papers. We refer to them as audit documentation captured in ISA number 230. Should be discussed next week. All right, next point. Secularization of various external parties. 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 And lastly, but not least, investigating frauds. Investigating frauds. Investigating frauds on behalf of external auditors. 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 Then we need to put down, there's somewhere we say, what are the benefits that will accrue? Time saving, efficiency, cost saving, like this. Where work is delegated, where work is delegated, where work is delegated by the external auditors, where work is delegated by the external auditors, where work is delegated, where work is delegated by the external auditor to the internal auditor, to the internal auditor, to the internal auditor, comma, various advantages arise. Various advantages arise. Various advantages arise, including, let me check this. Various advantages arise, including, various advantages arise, including A. All right, we're back for online student. Sorry for that hiccup. So we are saying various advantages arise, including Roman number 1, saving time for other important, saving time for other important functions, saving time for other important functions during the external audit, saving time for other important functions during the external audit, saving time for other important functions during the external audit. Very true. Number 2, creating efficiency, creating efficiency, creating efficiency in external audit process, creating efficiency in external audit process, creating efficiency in external audit process, efficiency in external audit process. Next, getting relevant and accurate information, getting relevant and accurate information, especially if getting relevant and accurate information, especially if internal auditors are competent, especially if internal auditors are competent, especially if internal auditors are competent. Internal auditors are competent. And lastly, number 4, gaining proper understanding. Gaining proper understanding. Gaining proper understanding of the nature of the client's business. Gaining proper understanding of the nature of the client's business. Gaining proper understanding of the nature of the client's business, of the nature of the client's business. Those are some of the advantages that will accrue when we delegate some of these functions to the internal auditors, Very important subtopic. Factors to consider, subtopic, factors to consider. Factors to consider before placing reliance. Factors to consider before placing reliance on internal auditors' work. Factors to consider before placing reliance on internal auditors' work. Factors to consider before placing reliance on internal auditors' work. So these are easy points. These are easy points. These are easy points. Number 1, independence. Number 1, independence. Number 1, independence. Number 2, technical competence. Number 2, technical competence. Technical competence. Number 3, past experience. Number 3, past experience. Number 3, past experience. Number 4, ICS, 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 IE, IE, IE. If the internal control systems, if the ICSs are not effective, if the ICSs are not effective, if the ICSs are not effective, comma, the department is of no use. 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 Here to Risha, we mentioned that. Next point. Next point. Scope and objectives. Scope and objectives. Scope and objectives. Scope and objectives, right? And say, if the scope is limited, if the scope is limited, if the scope is limited, the department is of no use. The department is of no use. The department is of no use. That way we mean that you can't risk relying on their work. And that's why we highlighted in our 4 points of how we can enhance their independence. We need to leave them free to decide on their scope and the nature of work that they are performing. Next point, resource availability. Resource availability. Resources availability. Resources availability. Then explain and say, an internal audit that is starved, an internal audit that is starved of resources, an internal audit that is starved of resources, an internal audit that is starved of resources may not be useful to the external auditors. 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 May not be useful to the external. It means that they're not able to carry out their mandate properly. So the quality of their work is likely to be questionable. The last point, due professional care and skills. 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 Let and say the external auditors should review the quality of the internal auditors' working papers. The external auditors should review the quality of internal auditors' working papers, to determine whether such work is properly planned, comma, executed, comma, recorded, and reviewed. Planned, executed, recorded, and reviewed. Planned, executed, recorded, and reviewed. We have a running friend who is asking here, what kind of resources? I've just mentioned about starved of resources. You need human resource, for instance, because as an internal auditor, we have the chief internal auditor. Then they have staffs below them. So do you have sufficient? You could be seeing that an entity has got like 7 functional levels. They have got 12 branches. You can't work alone. So we are checking human resource. Are you properly staffed? Not be staffed now. Are you properly staffed? Yes, sometimes you need finances for mobility. Yes, for training. We've indicated that they do the training. Maybe you need to organize for workshops, seminars, and such activities. You need financial resources. You even need time resource. You may be there, but you don't have time to visit these other branches. You are constrained within the headquarters, such resources. You even need technology. If the client has computerized the systems, you need such technology to be able to check through the computers. Those are the resources you are talking about. So if they're starved of resources, we can't risk. Is sufficient information a resource? Yes, it is. Yes.
How independent are external auditors if they are just depending on the internal auditors' findings?
They're very independent. It's a very good question. It's a very good question, because you find the auditors going an extra mile to rely on the work of internal auditors. They can even rely on the work of an expert. But the buck stops with them. The buck stops with the external auditor. And that's why we've said they cannot just rely on the work of internal auditors. They need to check all this. So they are independent. And if the internal auditors are independent, it means if they are to rely on internal auditors' working papers, then it's from independent auditors and their findings are independent.
How can you know these internal auditors are independent?
You have to appraise them. You'll appraise them as an external auditor. Maybe you can make some interviews. You interview the internal auditors. How is your normal day like? You want to see how they carry out their work. Yes, they explain, we report, we do this. Then after the findings, to whom do you report to? How do you always come up with a plan? Who influences on what you're doing? We want to assess their independence. If your conclusion is that they are independent, then you can go ahead and place reliance on their work. If your conclusion is that they're relatively independent, which you can place reliance, then you go ahead. But if you consider that they're not independent, you can't risk. Because this will eventually affect the auditors, the final auditor's report. So as external auditors, you're not obliged to rely on internal auditors. It's you to choose as an external auditor, whether you will or not. There are some external auditors who do not consider even the input of internal auditors because they know these are puppets of the management. They can't risk. So they carry out independent audit. But if upon assessment, you realize that it's okay to rely on their work, then good for you, because those advantages will accrue. But you must not rely on their work. And you can never escape liability because you relied on the work of an internal auditor or you relied on the work of an expert. It's you to be held liable.
Then what if a question comes from some of the internal controls?
Internal controls in an organization. Tunaweza shikilia hadi next week. Because I'll use an acronym known as order seeker. These are all controls. Organizational chart in place, record keeping, division of labor, authorization and approval, safeguarding of the assets, supervision, internal check and internal audit, competent staff, arithmetic checks. They're there. Yes. Thanks for that question. So next week, order seeker plus 3 more controls. So we'll get there. Thanks for that. Excellent. Is sufficient information a resource? It is, and that's why we said on what needs to be done to ensure that internal auditors are independent. If you check our 4 points, they need to have unrestricted access to information, staff, and branches. They need to have, just like their external counterparts, they need to have unrestricted access to everything. That otherwise, if there's some restriction, then what do they even audit? What's the subject matter? What's their subject matter? Their subject matter is ICS and maybe the books. They need to have unrestricted access. That's a good question. One Amani. That's a good Shaz. That's a good question. Any other question? Yes, questions are good because they indicate that we are understanding. Yes, we are understanding.
Support. Can it also be part of, goodwill?
Managerial support.
Let's say goodwill.
That's a very strong point, and we'll discuss it under control environment. Yes, things this topic should have come before. May not be a resource per se, but it's a way of indicating that management is serious on matters internal control system. Because if they put in place management and they lack that goodwill, as auditors, we assess that environment as being very weak as far as ICS is concerned. Actually, I'll define environment control as the management attitude towards ICS. Yes. It's a good thing. And the resources, it may not feature. But in an exam, you know what we said. In an exam, if you fall short of points, try to confuse them if you can't convince them.
The resource there could be the competency of the management in supporting the ICS.
Competency of the management.
Competency of the management. Like how competent are the management? Let's say the director, when it comes to internal, like are they supporting internal department? Something like that.
It's still summing up to support of management. Anyway, support of management is very important. It's just like the way you see, our CSS may not do so much without the blessing of the executive. And so is internal audit. Without the blessing of the management, they may not achieve so much. There is that connection that we require management with goodwill, management who have got the right attitude on matters ICS, management who is supportive. Because without them, then internal audit function will be a dog that barks but cannot bite. That's what we say. Toothless dog. Yes. So there is connection of what you're saying. We really require management who is serious about matters ICS. Without them, it will not add value to have an internal audit department. Will not have. But as an auditor, you find that a client has an internal audit department. That's a plus. With regard to your audit report. Because management, it's a way of showing that management are ready to have an oversight body. Because internal audit and audit committee, they play oversight role, yes, because they report issues to the non-executive directors and such. It's a plus to an entity if they have an internal audit department in the organization. All right, thanks for those questions. Limitations of internal audit functions. 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 You can remember those limitations? There are four. There are four. Number one, independence. Number one, independence, i.e., internal auditors may not be truly independent. Internal auditors may not be truly independent. Internal auditors may not be truly independent as expected. Internal auditors may not be truly independent as expected, as they are employees in the entity, as they are employees in the entity, as they are employees in the entity. They are employees in the entity. Number two, lack of supervision. Lack of supervision. Written saying, there lacks supervision. There lacks supervision. There lacks supervision, except when an internal auditor, except when an internal auditor is a member of a particular professional body. External auditor is a member, is it external? Internal auditor is a member of a particular professional body, except where internal auditor is a member of a particular professional body, is a member of a particular professional body. Next, variation of standards of performance. 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 Like and say, the work of internal auditors, the work of internal auditors may lack uniformity. The work of internal auditors may lack uniformity and consistency. May lack uniformity and consistency.
And on this particular point,
Yes.
this internal auditors governed also by an external.
They're not guided by ISA. They're not.
Do they study this?
For the purposes of external audit, because you may find that we outsource an auditing firm to carry out internal audit. So when they're carrying out internal audit, there are no specific guidelines because the scope of work is influenced by the management. But when they're carrying out external, then we have ISAs. So now it's coming to be known. There's general public awareness of internal audit function. And that's why I mentioned about IIA. IIA is there, but still not yet, we are not yet versed with what it requires us to do. I believe with time, because very few organizations have internal audit. Where you work, do you have internal auditors? You have, hey, Kwani, everybody you have. Hey, okay. All right. Yes. I wish we may have such as a registration or something. Yes. Size of the company. Yeah, depends on the size of the company. Yeah, because a small entity will not have. They will not even have audit committees. But if it's a big entity, you'll find it having so many other bodies to assist in management. It's a good question that ISPAC should look into a way of even ensuring that every corporate of a certain nature have got a member registered with ISPAC. Something of that nature. Yes. And of course, we said they need to come up with a the threshold of salaries of accountants, something. Yes. But really oppressed, being oppressed out there. Yes, such a threshold. Issues of internal audit. It's just a matter of having a piece of registration. They can always enforce this. They can always push this. Like, of course, we have ISPAC we even have Accountants Act. But these other custom professions are yet to be enshrined in the acts, like CIFA and CCP. They are not yet. But you see, as members, we are pushing. We are at an advanced stage of having it enacted. You see? So even ISPAC should be doing something to assist us. Yes, like any work. This guys, Ameshiba-san. Yes, I've spoken with the raw tone. You never know who is hearing. But that's it. They're sleeping on their job in a way. The last point, the problem of expectations gap. The problem of expectations gap. The problem of expectations gap. The problem of expectations gap, i.e., there is lack of clear understanding. There is a lack of clear understanding. There is a lack of clear understanding of the role of internal auditors, clear understanding of the role of internal auditors, clear understanding of the role of internal auditors, raising possibility of conflicts and disagreements, raising possibility of conflicts and disagreements, raising possibility of conflicts and disagreements between such employees, raising possibility of conflicts and disagreements between such employees and other employees of the entity. Conflicts and disagreements between such employees and other employees of the entity, and other employees of the entity, and other employees of the entity, and other employees of the entity. All right, matters outsourcing, I'll share the notes right away. Have them like what is outsourcing, services that can be outsourced, advantages, disadvantages. Plus, of course, these ones I'll also share. I know there's people who do not get right when I'm dictating, so I'll still share so that you have them in soft. And are there some other notes that I've not shared? Last week we said I've shared everything. I've shared everything for group, in the group. So as an individual person, if you're not getting them, there's somebody who has asked me that I share. These are the running friends. Chat me here, 07019777780. Just do AA, just write AA. So that I know, maybe you're not in the group, I can add you in the group or send you the link or share the notes. If it's notes, you can ask for the notes. AA notes, AA group. At least I facilitate that. I'll facilitate that. So you continue revising. These notes are becoming bulky. And exams are next month. 21st of August.
Next month.
Yes.
Oh, today is fast.
Today is fast. So next month we have our exams. So I want to make sure that by the end of this month, we should be talking of like 2 or 3 subtopics remaining. It should not be topics remaining. It should be subtopics remaining, if any. And we'll get there. We will get there. Kindly, if you're planning of missing a class on Wednesday, do some arrangements. Although I'll share the notes. Risks never miss in an exam. Risks have never missed in an exam. So on Wednesday, we'll be handling a past paper question. So somebody is repeating my number, 0701 9 0701 9 777 0701 9 777 You can send something through M-Pesa to confirm it, so that you don't miss it. Let's say the grace. Now may the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ and the love of God and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with us now and forevermore. Amen. Blessed evening. Be safe. Jumapili kimbia kanisani. Tukutane next week. Kuendelea. We have all the reasons to thank God. Yes.